Did you know that the New Testament survived precisely because it didn't begin in elite spaces? That's right, it didn't begin inside Greek aristocratic philosophy. It didn't begin inside the academic schools of Athens. Yes, Greek philosophical culture influenced some idea presentation structure, but the New Testament was not written in the language of Plato, of Aristotle. No, it was written in the language of normal people, common Greek, Koine Greek, the language of ports, trade routes, freed slaves, Roman soldiers far from home, and that single linguistic reality changed everything about how the text moved through history. The Jesus movement did not begin locked inside one little class. No, it began accessible to everyone. When most people think of ancient Greek texts, they imagine high philosophy, right? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, literature written and the highest levels of classical literary precision. But the New Testament does not belong to that category. No, it was born in Koine. Now, Koine was not a location. Koine was street Greek, everyday Greek, functional, lived Greek. It was the connective tissue of the Mediterranean world in the first century. It was essentially the global English of the ancient world. So where did Koine come from? Well, historically, Koine emerges because of Alexander the Great. When Alexander expands across the Greek world and Egypt and Persia, 4th century BC, he forces a massive practical unification of language. Many dialects of classical Greek collided into constant contact. Ionic, Doric, Attic, Aeolic. Soldiers, merchants, officials, governors, all interacting, all negotiating, all living together and speaking the same language. And because of this long sustained contact, Greek simplified. It became less literary, it became less aristocratic, more leveled, more direct. It became koine, common. The very word koinonia means sharing or participation, common unity. That's why community. So Koine Greek was not the language of academic elites. It was the functional Greek of regular people, ports and markets and roads. It was the Greek of the Roman world outside the ivory tower. And this is precisely why Koine was the perfect linguistic container for the New Testament, you see. Because when the New Testament begins to be written, 1st century AD, Koine Greek is already the lingua franca of the entire Mediterranean. Rome ruled militarily, yes, but Greece still ruled culturally and linguistically. So the New Testament is born inside a globally accessible language. Christianity did not begin in philosopher Greek. No, it began in the language the world actually spoke. So Christianity didn't just use Koine. Christianity actually helped preserve Koine. And this fact becomes historically explosive because when a text is understandable, it is reproducible. And that means the New Testament could travel fast. It could be read by fishermen in Galilee, by merchants in Ephesus, by freed slaves in Rome, by farmers in Syria. Because it could be understood, it could also be copied. Small churches could preserve the text. Poor communities could transmit the text. Common believers could participate in the preservation of Scripture, not just elite scholars. Christianity did not depend on one intellectual class guarding the Bible. Christianity expanded because the text was understandable. It worked outside the temple, outside Jerusalem, in every port of the ancient Mediterranean. This linguistic choice was strategic before anyone even realized it. God chose the language of widest circulation in the ancient world. That choice was not neutral. That choice allowed the faith to travel. That choice allowed the text simply to survive. And that sets up the next shocking historical consequence. Because once common believers across the Mediterranean could read this text, they could also quote it, right? Early Christian literature began to quote the New Testament frequently. Preachers and bishops and theologians and apologists, they quote the New Testament in sermons and letters and debates and public defenses, and they quote it everywhere, so aggressive, so consistently, so overwhelmingly, that even if every physical New Testament manuscript we have found disappeared today, we could still reconstruct almost the entire New Testament just from early Christians' quotations. But that, well, that is episode 3.